I guess you can tell from the title what this video is going to be about. It's an uncomfortable topic, but it's an inevitable conversation to have. Everybody must have this conversation in some way, shape, or form. I think I've gotten a little better at having this conversation because within the past 4 years, I've lost significant people who were near and dear to me to the so-called death experience. I'm intentionally using the phrase so-called death experience because words have power. And when it comes to the word death, it carries so much weight, it carries such a heavy emotional vibration frequency till at the mention of the word you just feel it conjures up fear. A lot of what I talk about on this channel is about expanding your awareness. When you come into an awareness of something, part of our journey here is to deprogram fear. To me, death is one of the biggest fears on this planet. And there are a lot of soothing words people use to talk about the so-called death experience, like death is a part of life, death is an expansion or a continuation of life. To be absent from the body is to be present with spirit. Where I'm at in my life now, I grieve differently. In 2017, I lost one of my aunts. In 2018, I lost one of my sisters. And this month, July 2021, July 18th, 2021, I lost one of my grandmothers, my mom's mom. So today is July 21st. I fly down to my hometown in South Carolina for her funeral this Saturday, July 24th. This whole week has just been me in reflection mode, and so hence it's just I just wanted to put the camera in front of me and just kind of not even completely concerned with how rough I look right now, and just share my heart and share my thoughts about the subject. Because one would think, when you're experiencing the physical absence of someone, their non-physical bodies are still very present. This could go into a whole quantum conversation, but I think for me, that side of the conversation is what soothes me. When we look at this human experience, we think that it's one reality, but when we look at the non-physical experience, we sometimes think that that's a dream. But in actuality, that's reality. Which is why most people say that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spirit beings having a human experience. You see how that phrase just flips everything upside down? Everything is about focus because you have multiple realities happening at the same time. Not just the physical human reality, but the non-physical realities that we do not see. For the people who have crossed over into the non-physical world, they're able to jump realities, really. And that's a whole other conversation that I feel like if I were to have that around my environment and just the people who don't think in terms of physics, because literally life is one big science project in my head. And that's one of the reasons why I look at the so-called death experience, and I grieve differently when I lose someone that I love or someone that I'm very close to, because we're never alone. When you look at it in those terms, and when you look at it from that angle. Going back to my hometown in South Carolina, Santee, South Carolina. I know it will bring back a lot of memories because I haven't really been down there since I lost my sister back in 2018. So I'll be going to not only be in that environment again, but to see my old house that I grew up in, old friends and old family members who I haven't seen since my sister passed. And of course we see each other online, or I see most of my family, most of my friends online and on social media. I'm grateful for the connection, but there's nothing like physically being in the same vicinity as the people who helped shape and influence your life in some way, shape, or form. And it's interesting that the so-called death experience brings people together, or some form of tragedy or some form of pain. I think it's important to look at that as a sign to not diminish how purposeful pain is, how purposeful danger is, and how purposeful even death is. Because it's not an either or experience. It's not a life or death experience. It's a life and death experience. It's parallel logic here. It's a part of the dualistic nature, the duality that we are a part of. Duality is just simply when two opposing realities coexist, or they exist at the same time. You have life existing at the same time as death. You can't have one without the other, because it takes one in order to know the other. Having lost my grandmother, the grieving process hits a little differently. Like, I'm not boiling over, and the same was the case with my sister, and the same was the case with my aunt before her, but then also people that I knew in between these, these significant, what I think, losses for me. My life has been going through shifts. If you relate to this video, I'm sure you feel shifts happening in your life. You may not can explain it or pinpoint it or have a definitive answer for the shifts, but you can feel that something is happening. You can feel that something is either about to happen, and you don't quite know what it is. But I think it's important too to be mindful that if your mind is going to a fear-based thought about it, then it's important to start practicing ways to shift your mind to something that's non-fearful, something that brings you joy, something that brings you peace, something that complements that joy, something that complements that peace. All of those non-fearful tactics point you into the direction of unconditional love, which is the foundational basis of everything. That's really where your focus is going to go. If you're focused on things that are bringing you joy, if you are focused on things that bring up and inspire love and radical acceptance, then that's what you're going to see more of. If you're focused on things that are conjuring fear, worry, and doubt, and stress, then you're going to get more of that. If you care about your well-being, if you care about your peace of mind, then the responsibility really lies in your hand. I really do live in a happy space in my life. I really do live in a lighthearted and a carefree space in my life. And I choose to focus on those things, even in the so-called death experience. Never a goodbye. The songwriter says goodbyes never last for long, because our love lives on. And it's in that love that we can find the peace, we can find the joy, and we can find the acceptance. Yeah. Today is travel day to my hometown of Santee, South Carolina, to lay my grandma Hazel to rest. For those of you that don't know, I've been an independent professional music artist for the past 9 years, based in New York City, but with humble beginnings in South Carolina. I come from a musical family. My mom sings, my dad used to sing in a quartet group when he was younger in church. My sisters sing, my cousins sing and play instruments. Usually, music and faith brings us together. For my grandmother's homegoing service, it was only appropriate that my sisters, close cousins, and I send her off to her favorite song, the Hawkins family classic, Going Up Yonder. If you wanna know where I'm going, all the good memories came flooding back to me while being home this time around. My old house. It was built in 2001, and I personally engraved our names in the pavement. There's Barbara, my mom, Tori, my older sister, me, Joseph, Monica, my middle sister, and Stephanie, my baby sister. We've always lived on this property, but this house was a milestone for my then single mom, who was putting in lots of hard work to make sure we were living safe and comfortably. Because many years before, following my mom and dad's divorce, we lost everything because my mom wasn't working and my dad was the breadwinner. Therefore, we didn't really feel safe and we weren't really comfortable. But this house was a miracle for us. There's my mom in our old kitchen. Still looks the same. She repainted the cabinets and changed the colors. The microwave and a white refrigerator and our china. Yes. And this memorabilia of my late sister Monica. My next video, I'm going to do a next video and dedicate it to her, my beloved sister Monica. I love that my mom did this and placed this here in the house. It's beautiful. And now we enter my old room that my mom turned into a guest room with the same banner around the room. We're approaching the garden my grandma was rebuilding before she passed. She loved to garden. I felt like we didn't have to go to the grocery store much because she planted and grew everything for as long as I've known her. To me, I felt like that was her fellowship and quality time with God. But then she stopped for a few years. I spoke to her twice before she passed. The first time was a FaceTime call, and she said, Joe, I got my garden back up. I said, oh yeah? And she turned the camera toward it and I said, wow, you weren't kidding. Wait, you got a scarecrow in the garden this time around? She said, you think that's a scarecrow. That's mini-me out there praising the Lord. And that touched my heart. To me, it was a rekindling of her connection. But the second call, I knew it was going to be the last one on this side of her human life. She said, I'm still praying for you. I love you. And I said, I love you back. And that brought me peace. She was at peace. This wasn't a sad goodbye. It was a celebration of a life well lived. I felt lighter when I left my hometown this time around. She lived life the best way that she knew how, and she did it with grace and dignity. And I truly believe the words of her favorite song ring so true now. God gave her grace to run this race, and now she sees her Savior face to face. Until we meet again, Grandma.